The latest crime statistics have raised concern throughout the country, with the IFP going as far as calling for a parliamentary debate on the reinstatement of the death penalty. The Police Ministry released the figures yesterday, which show an increase on various offences. The murder rate up by 7%, amounting to an average of 57 people being killed daily. Rape also went up, with over 40,000 cases recorded, while hijackings dropped just slightly. However, the ministry insists that the country hasn't reached a state of lawlessness. To discuss this further, we are now joined by the National Police Commissioner, Khehla Sitole, and Gusha Ngantweni, who is the lead editor of Handbook on Crime Prevention and Policing and Criminology lecturer at the University of South Africa. Gentlemen, thank you for coming, and thanks for being our guests on the programme.
Thank you very much.
My question to you, Police Commissioner, is exactly what I've just read here. The ministry insists that the country hasn't reached a state of lawlessness. What needs to happen for us to reach that state?
Yeah, I think firstly, let me confirm what the minister has indicated, because that's honesty, and we have to be honest to the public. The country definitely has not reached that stage. Firstly, the crime in general, we managed to reduce the levels, but the crimes of fear, which actually are the most problematic for the public, those are the crimes that give us the problem, including the murders. But as we presenting the stats yesterday, worse as they were, we presented the stats together with the response in order to make sure and restore the hope of the public.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and I do, and I speak on behalf of the South African public, because it is hard to get the faith back, because it's a constant battle. It's something that doesn't feel like it's getting better. I mean, when we talk about 57 people being killed every single day in South Africa, and equating it to a war zone, you know, these are very difficult things to comprehend, and to put your head on a pillow safely at night and say, I'm okay, you know, it's fine, because it's not fine. And I want to bring you into this, Gusha. I mean, you obviously, you look into this. I mean, this is what you're a criminology lecturer. Do you think that South Africa is not in a state of lawlessness, or can we declare it that?
The truth, really, as it was said earlier, is that we have a national crisis when it comes to crime. Over 20,300 people killed in 1 year. And if you tally those numbers backwards, 10 years ago, you've got over 175,000 people who were killed. And at some point, we had our murder rate around the 2010, 11, 2012 financial years down below 16,000. But then we allowed, that number to go up steadily, and now it is at over 20,000. So already you can see there that there is a failure of both leadership and intervention. And of course, with apologies to the National Commissioner, the South African Police Service has been unstable over the recent period at the very top, which is where the buck stops.
Yeah, and that's the reality. It has been, and I don't think the minister shied away from that. And the fact that it has been unstable. And let's be real. Now, these statistics, and let's just put it into perspective, are looking back. They're looking back at a time, the minister obviously came into this portfolio from February, and he has come in, but a lot of these figures are from the past financial year. We had other police commissioners, we had other police ministers. It was a very different time, and he's been pointing fingers as well. You know, I mean, they're the numbers speaking for themselves on the screen. If you haven't seen them as yet, please do have a look at them. But pointing fingers at the previous leaders, let's start there. I mean, is that good enough?
Definitely not. It starts with one of the 7 logics of philosophy: make peace with the past so as it doesn't spoil your present. I think what we are up against is to create the safety of the communities. Let's provide a response. And firstly, let me acknowledge, and I'm actually taking with appreciation the fact that the organization has not been stable. And when you have to respond to this national crisis, we have to fix both. You fix both the organization and you also fix the crime, so that you can create the safety of the people. And fighting crime, it's not only about the police taking the criminals head on, but it's also about the confidence of the community in the police.
Yeah.
Yes, and one of the biggest areas that I declared as my first focus was the revival of crime intelligence in the service. Remember, that is the foundation for fighting crime. If you do not have that right, and you have actually lost, that is the fight against crime.
Yeah.
So that has become the first priority for 8 years without leadership and the very unstable environment, and that's where criminals decided to capitalize. So we then decided immediately that let's work on the turnaround of crime intelligence. Yes, there's been other challenges. One of the challenges is the strategic deployment of resources. I think more resources, they actually rose up to the strategic level of the organization, and that exposed your police stations. And those were one of the hard decisions against to take. Let's take the resources back to the police stations so that we do policing where the communities are.
Yeah.
But then we have also brought in the other reality of the United Nations stats of the ratio of the police to the public, and which is 1:220. South Africa 1:383 as we speak. And in 2010 we responded to murder positively so. But the organization was at 200,000 at the time. Currently, the population has increased to 57.3. We're at 191,000. So obviously, it's a little bit of a disabled response towards that. So that's one other area where we also said, let's review the personnel plan of the organization. Let us make the operational plan, the personnel plan respond to the population growth in the country.
Yeah.
Yes. So those are areas that we're fixing in order to get out of the crisis. But one last one is also the change, the upgrading of the training. I think our response and our retaliation to criminals also had to do with our training, and hence we had to review the training and development strategy and begin to say, let's now declare basic training as a tactical response type of training, and we also need to retrain all the members of the service across the country so that if police get to a hassle with a criminal, it's not the police that should lie down. We're not saying it's the criminal that should, but the police should not because of the training that we're giving.
Okay.
Yes.
Gusha, I want you to respond to all of that. It's your field, that's what you look at. Is this the solution?
First of all, just a point of correction. I'm not a criminology lecturer. I was a senior lecturer in the Department of Police Practice, and I still work in the field. For example, the book you talked about.
Yeah.
A very important note to all of us as a nation. Crime, fundamentally, is not a policing problem. Fundamentally, it is a socio-economic problem.
Yes.
And there are 5 areas in which, as a society, as government, as business, as civil society, we let down our police service. The most important is the socio-economic circumstances of the average offender. You can look at all the categories of crime. Secondly, with regard to violent crime, conduct crime in particular, gun laws. Third, our liquor laws. And then fourth, we do not have a coherent, impactful and high-powered community and resource mobilization plan for, or rather strategy for crime prevention and policing. And lastly, we do not have an effective social work service to our challenged communities. Now, all those things, you can double the police budget tomorrow and double the numbers tomorrow. If you don't deal with those fundamental issues, you are not going to make a greater impact on the picture of crime.
Yeah,
it
indeed.
really is a sad situation.
And it is. I mean, it is a bad situation. It's something we talk about all the time, is the socio-economic situation of South Africans. It's that social... we are not a well society. We're a sick
Yes.
society, and this is a very big problem. And I understand that, and that's something we need to address and we need to talk about. But something we do need to talk about, though, are the police, and we can't let them get away with this. So we can talk about the numbers, increasing numbers. My argument is quality versus quantity, because there's been talk, and people will tell you that in the most crime-ridden areas where there are hijackings, there's drug dealing, there's gangsterism, there's murder, there's everything happening, and those have been broken down and we can see them. The police are involved, that they are the ones that let them do what they want to do. They get paid a little bit on the sideline and they turn their back and don't do anything about it. What are you going to do about that? That is a big problem. Never mind the socio-economic situation of South Africa, corrupt police officials.
Okay, it's not a question of what am I going to do about it. It's a question of what have I started doing
Good. Happy
about
to
it.
hear that. Happy to hear
Yes.
that.
One, you might have heard 3 months ago we arrested 16 of our own in the Eastern Cape. I think 2 weeks ago another 6. You might have heard I've pronounced the suspension of senior officers at the level of Lieutenant General. And I have also instructed the review of the HR policy framework in the organization to include vetting and lifestyle audit, so that we kept this right from entry, but we flush out the rotten potatoes. In June, we've officially launched the SABC anti-corruption strategy. And as I'm speaking to you now, it is in execution. So we are on a campaign to flush out the rotten potatoes and protect those who are showing a very patriotic sacrifice to serving the interest of policing in the country.
Yeah. What
Yes.
about facilities? What about fixing up police stations, giving them the vehicles that they need in order to do their job properly? Because you hear of horror stories at some police stations where they're a disaster. You walk in and they can't do anything because they have nothing to do it with.
Presently, we have a completed business case. This business case is the one that is addressing the shortage of numbers, is addressing the physical resources, the capacitation of police stations. Over and above that, while I've also spoken about police numbers, I've also ordered the total review of the SABC technology user requirement, because I've been to China, I've just returned last week, and we were actually engaging on the digital transformation as part and parcel of improving your policing. And what we have witnessed there is that when you improve your technology, you don't need the same numbers that is of police. So at the present moment, we're reviewing that strategy, and it's part and parcel of the business case that we're submitting to Treasury. So that is work that is already done, and we've got the support of the minister. It's going to go through cabinet also and Treasury, with a drastic improvement of the resources at the police station. And then in the turnaround vision that I've pronounced just on the second day of my appointment, I also then ordered the migration of resources is down to police station level.
Okay.
That is an action. You saw the top 30 police stations. Those particular police stations, the resources are going to be upgraded. We went through a process of consultation with unions. We are done. Now we are on execution.
Okay. You want to say something, Gusha? I can see you want to comment on us.
Yeah, sure. HR, physical, financial resources, those are not going to exponentially grow in our current economic environment. In business management, there is what is called sweating the assets. One of the things that I've long observed in the police, in the 14 years I spent in the police and in the 9 years I've been teaching and researching, is that there is a lack of proper coordination of the units and the services that are already there. One of those glaring examples is the type of working arrangements between the South African Police Service and Metro Police Services. Now, there are politics around that, and unfortunately, politicians do politicize things that don't need to be politicized. Because one of the mandates of municipal councils is local economic development. Now, you are not going to have local economic development if you've got a crime problem. So there is something that needs to be done there. There was some talk about it some years ago, also with regards to the private security industry. You need to improve, working lines with those entities, and also within organizations, within the organization, because if a cluster commander has 3 or 5 police stations, those stations, all those resources belong to him or her. And so they have to use those resources that they have to attend to the crime hotspots, to attend to the crime problems. And the other thing is performance management. There are a lot of stars in the police, high-performing people with the right attitude, who are energetic, who are inspirational, and all of that.
Okay.
So you need to expose the juniors, the younger ones, to people like those, and you also need to do a lot of performance coaching. You can use retired cops, you can use those who are in the system to go around, attending to those hotspots, because that in large and complex organizations such as this SAPS, one of the most important gears is your management and leadership cohort.
Okay.
Those are the people who set the tone at every level: supervisor, junior manager, middle manager, senior manager, and the executive leadership.
Yeah.
Those people set the tone.
Okay. I want to bring up a point from the IFP. And
Yes.
they are calling for a parliamentary debate on the reinstatement of the death penalty. When we're looking at 57 murders a day, sitting over 20,000 murders a year, not to mention the rape, not to mention all of the other things that we are talking about, do you think this is a possibility? Do you think that this is the way to go to scare the criminals and to perhaps say, you know what, the death penalty needs to come back so that we can sort this out? Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I doubt if I want to comment on the death penalty, because at the present moment, our mission is the creation of a safe and secure environment. And I want to start by taking from him, because I deliberately didn't want to comment. If you go to the preamble of the National Crime Prevention Strategy, former President Mandela made a call. He said, fighting crime, it's not the duty of the police only.
Yeah.
And we require multidisciplinary collaboration. And the National Crime Prevention Strategy was then declared. Now I want to tell you what stands in Chapter 12 of the National Development Plan. There's a caption there that says, the collapse of the National Crime Prevention Strategy led to SABS being an all-purpose agency with an overstretched mandate, impossible to fulfill. So all I'm saying is that, and up until such time that we all collaborate and present one front to crime, we may not speak about any other solution.
Yeah.
And I also want to tell you what are the current dynamics of policing. One of the worst areas in terms of murders is Western Cape.
Yes.
But go and look at the special development. I went there. I was there personal myself. I had my new members deployed. They were coming from the college. They were walking through that particular environmental design. They could be shot at any given time. And there's areas where they can't go in with a vehicle. They must park the vehicle somewhere and they must walk in. So all I'm saying is, and I'm glad the minister has convened a crime summit. It's taking place actually this week, 13th and 14th. In that particular crime summit, we want the revival of, or the review of the National Crime Prevention Framework. I think he has indicated clearly we need a national crime prevention framework, a provincial crime prevention framework, and a local crime prevention framework. Now, for us to try to scare the criminals without preventing the crime, you still have a problem because criminals will still continue. But then again, within SABS, we've also formalized the Modus Operandi Analysis Center, which is and Research Center, which will allow us to go to predictive policing.
Yes.
And then we kept the modus operandi before it translates into crime.
Okay.
So those are the areas that I'm looking at, and the death penalty could be at the last end.
Commissioner, I want to pose something to you, and we've got 30 seconds to do this. Mob justice, it is becoming a very big reality in South Africa. It's happening everywhere, in all communities, in all spheres of South Africa, because they're losing confidence in the police. What is your reaction to mob justice? If the police aren't doing anything, then we as the community are going to do something.
Okay, let me first say, your mob justice is also going hand in glove with your public violence. And then as the police, we've done modus operandi analysis. One of our discoveries is that there's prominent criminals who are using public violence and as well as mob justice to cause confusion so that they actually commit the real crimes. So on the one hand, I'm saying it's a modus operandi. Secondly, mob justice requires a community-centered policing approach. You can't fight certain crimes or prevent certain ills without working together with the communities. And as from the South African Police Service, I think now in October, we're launching the community policing strategy.
Good.
And then so that we close the gap between ourselves as well as the communities, and we're empowering the communities to work together with us. Within the National Crime Prevention Strategy, we're mobilizing civil society organizations. I think we've got partnership now with SABC, Consumer Goods Council, quite a lot of business and all of them. So now in October, we're going on a massive mobilization of communities so that they start working together with us and we close the criminal out. And one of the last one, which is youth crime prevention, one of the other things we decided to do, we actually designed a youth crime prevention framework, which is also going to be launched now. We decided, and we're calling on all the communities, let us take a young person out of reach. Then we'll collapse all the criminal operations.
All right, I have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. Our Police Commissioner, National Police Commissioner Khehla Sitole talking to us, and Gusha Ngantweni, who's the lead editor of a Handbook on Crime Prevention and Policing. Not a criminology lecturer, but somebody who works in an advisory capacity at the University of South Africa. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Quick break. We'll have your news at 8 after this.